Hello, my name is Rich Rebecki, and tonight I'm co-hosting with Jan Loida the monthly St. Genevieve Museum Spotlight Show. Jan's back at the studio with two guests tonight, and we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a remote with me and the building, sharing with you viewers some of the plans that we have, starting with the outbuildings on the other side of the driveway, and then near the end of the half hour of my time, we'll turn it over to Jan, and she and her guests can explain the many different ways that people can be financially involved with this project. So if you follow me, we'll head over to the outbuildings. Our architect, Steve Bacon, knows that the more area that we have for displays, the more displays we'll have. So he came up with a couple of really unique ideas in moving some of the stuff we thought would be on the first floor, the second floor, the Learning Center, over here. This was once a barber shop, and it has glass in the front, and what we're planning on doing is adding some glass on the side here. And that way there, anybody that is on the sidewalk, anybody that has paid their admission and are done with the museum, can come over here and watch craftsmen work. Every day there'll be people building items, cleaning items, categorizing items, cataloging items. All this can be done in this space on the other side of the glass. And it's kind of free entertainment, if you will. But Steve had a good point. We move a big piece of what needs to be done in here. We've created addition by subtraction. As we move down, you can see the span, the length of this building. There's plenty of room for storage. There's plenty of room for multiple work sections. We could even put a vent system in, and any spray painting that needs to be done can be done here, and nothing will affect what goes on in the main building. As we move down a little more, another one of our concerns, food and liquid in the main building. So we're thinking about having our concession stand out here. Once again, it would be open up to the public, be open up to the paying customers, and it keeps, the important thing is it'll keep liquids and food from the display area. As we move further down, the white block, those two buildings that are there really aren't very sound. What we're thinking about doing is knocking the block work down, but leaving the concrete pad. How cool would it be to see people, let's say in this area, dressed in Maya, Aztec, Inca costumes, making jewelry, or somebody in colonial dress doing blacksmith type work on a rotating basis. We could have people dressed as Native Americans teaching young kids how to grind corn. We could put up outdoor fire pits or possible open flame areas so people dressed as fur traders can give lessons on how to cook in the wilderness. I mean, the sky's the limit. And we've got so many Viking artifacts. How cool would it be to see somebody dressed as a Viking sharpening a sword or a knife? So we're planning on this being kind of like an open air crafts area. And again, it's all part of the museum, but everything that's here is basically free to the public. Now, the building itself, one of the things that Steve talked about was eliminating people having to walk all the way around the block to get in. If the front door was the only way in, or the back entrance was the only way in. So we actually have a doorway that's bricked in right here, and what we're thinking of doing, and when we go inside, this is where we'll start the inside part of the tour, we're thinking about extending the width of this and the height of this. This will be the official way into the Learning Center. I mean, we may dress up the alleyway with an archway and neon lights that, announce that, we're the Museum Learning Center, but this is the way everybody will come in. And we'll steal a little idea from Disney. You'll walk through this opening into the gift store, and barring an emergency, leaving from auxiliary exit, you'll leave from the gift store as well. So if we don't catch you on the way in, we're going to catch you on the way out. And our research indicated that almost 30% of the annual income for a museum or an attraction facility comes from purchases at the gift store. So that's how you're going to come in and out. And we're still talking about, some sort of glass structure or, visually tying the two buildings in together. But at this point in time, we're thinking that's the work area, that's the concession area, that's the open craftsperson area. And hopefully, as I said, we'll have people in costume doing their thing. Now, we'll go into the first floor. You'll see me from time to time. I apologize, looking at my wristwatch. I want to make sure that I take up just my allotted time so that there's plenty of time at the end of end of my part of this, so that Jan and her guests can do their thing. But come on, follow me. We'll go on in, and nothing is etched in stone. What I'm going to be telling you is what we're thinking about today. Call me tomorrow night, and I may have a different answer because something's come up in the interim. But this is based on September 1. This is what we're going to see. Here we are inside half of the first floor, and I'm standing in front of that bricked-in doorway. And about where my light is shining, this is what we're talking about for the new entranceway. Now, I'm already inside the building, obviously, so a year from now or whenever we're open, I'm also in the gift store. The gift store will have a very mobile kiosks. You never know, we don't know how many displays we're going to have at this point in time. So we're going to make as many things portable, movable, I should say, as possible. Now, there are two basic foot traffic patterns in a museum. One is called the linear pattern, where you begin at a certain point in time and you either go backwards one way or forward another way. You crisscross somewhere in the facility and you're stuck on a timeline. The other way, the other method is called random. And random in the sense that everything that's to my left is related, but maybe that's different items in front over there, or the stuff to my right is all related, but it could be different items on display than that's on the left. An example would be maybe this is a civilization of mankind, this area in here. So what you would see in here would be fossils and artifacts from prehistoric man. You may see displays of all the different cultures that we have. We're going to have items on display from Egypt, from Italy, the Roman Empire, the Egyptian Empire, the Chinese Empire. We have Native American items. We have pre-Columbian items. So possibly all in this area would be all mankind type items, but not one huge display of one culture, multiple cultures. And that kind of theory will play itself throughout all of the footprint of the building. Somewhere over here there'll be an opening. We have an elevator that will take you up to the second floor. So somewhere over here will be an opening. At this point in time, we don't know if our amphitheater, we're going to have a facility that between 35 and 50 people can comfortably sit in stadium seating, watching pre-taped shows from the Discovery Channel, from National Geographic. We're in the process of working out all the legalities of being able to do that. And as a nonprofit, everybody that I'm speaking to has so far given us the green light and will forward paperwork saying that we should be able to do that. Another aspect of this amphitheater will be, once upon a time, this building housed a theater, a silent movie theater, and it's on the other side where it was. And we would like to pay homage to that. So in between the showings of our TV programming, we'll fill in that time with silent movies. And my flashlight is highlighting the hand-painted green border that's been up here since the building was first constructed. That wall, this wall right in here, this is where the actual silent movies were once played. There's a platform up here, an elevated platform. Musicians played on here as, for entertainment. Once the crowd assembled, then they went off stage and they played the music that accompanied the actual movie. Another thing that you can see from down here, and we'll get a better look when we go upstairs, is this is actually the base. This right here is actually the base of a dumbwaiter. And this dumbwaiter was actually the first elevator in the area. And the ropes on either side are fully functional. And when we get upstairs, you'll be able to see how the gears work. This area right here we're talking about, this big area that is a mirror image of the side we were just on. This could be very well where our prehistoric, our Jurassic Park, our type of imagery will go. Our curator is a master modeler of dinosaurs. Some of his dinosaurs have been on display over the Christmas time at the DeBerg Center. He'll be bringing in some of these models. Maybe the Jurassic period and Triassic period will be represented in this area here. Again, that's, as of today, that's what we're thinking about, but certainly that could change. I've got about maybe 10, 12 more minutes, so why don't we take a walk upstairs. Upstairs is the Learning Center heartbeat, pulse of this whole project. We're not a conventional history and science museum. What we are, in fact, is a learning center for history and science. So all of our historical artifacts at the current museum will join the artifacts and the imagery that Guy Darrow, our curator, is bringing. He's got the science end of things and some historical end of things, and we're going to put it all together. Let's take a walk upstairs. Well, here we are on the second floor, and I'm standing roughly above the center of the proposed gift store downstairs. This wall, the wall in front, loaded with windows, this will be the perfect area for a world-class conference center. I should say conference room that can be used as a center for people who need a meeting place. We've got running water. We've got plumbing already here. This would make the perfect room for a conference table, big enough for 15, 18 people, a kitchenette. Full-size kitchenette. The one thing that I'm sticking my guns to is our staff needs a comfortable place to take their breaks, have their lunch, have their meetings. There'll be daily department meetings. There'll be weekly museum staff meetings. Our own executive board meets once a month. So this probably is the conference room right here. Offices, some of the people like the curator, like the director of operations, like the marketing manager, the art manager, mass media manager. public relations, they'll need office space, and this would be a perfect area to keep all the office spaces close to the conference room. And as you can see, we could probably fit all the offices that are needed, and through that gray door, there are 2 offices that we haven't destroyed because they've got built-in cabinets and built-in drawing tables. So there are more offices on the other side. It'll be up to our architect to design a way to incorporate those into this space. Over here, we've got plenty of space for more exhibits. As a matter of fact, we're planning on having an exhibit dedicated just to the mining industry, an exhibit dedicated just to the agriculture industry. Because of my educational background, I really want a resource reference center to be state-of-the-art. That will probably be located on the other side. But as you can see, there's plenty of space. There's a nice little dark corner here that could probably make a perfect space for the amphitheater. I mean, we have a lot of footprint now that we moved a couple of items across the way. All of the floors up here are going to be retained and refinished, and the brickwork will in this area will be completely maintained. I mean, this stuff's been up since 1900. This is the top of the dumbwaiter. You can see the gear system. In all likelihood, we're planning on closing in the gear system in plexiglass so people can see how the gears work in conjunction with the platform. We will pin it so that it doesn't, it won't fall on anybody. Nobody will get hurt over here. But we do want to retain that. For $18.99, that was a state-of-the-art technology, so we'd like to keep it. One of the rooms that we're planning on having is a room dedicated to the families, the families that have deep roots in the community, calling it the St. Genevieve Room. And we're leaning toward this space here because it has 2 doorways. It has a natural way in and a natural way out. And what we're thinking of doing is displaying some of the items that we have in our current history museum along the walls, but keep the middle open so that we can take a family, ask them to set up in the middle here to tell their story. And their story would be, let's take the Woke family will tell their story for 3 months. The Uding family for 3 months. There'll be displays. We'll help them with their displays. We'll help them set up. They'll tell the story. Those of us that are associated with the Museum Learning Center will assist them. And then every 3 or 4 months, there'll be a new family that's highlighted. And that's going to be different than the current museum. The current museum, every blue moon, we are able to change a display. Now we're going to be changing items in this facility on 3 or 4 month cycles. So again, today we're looking at this as the St. Genevieve Room once it's cleaned up. Tomorrow, who knows what this could be. Maybe the St. Genevieve Room will be outside there. But that, as I said, that's where our plans are. This side here has windows looking over the front, and I'm thinking this is the perfect area for a resource center on steroids, if you will. I'm envisioning a circular type desk that is an information center. I'm looking at somebody that has a bank of monitors that they're watching, security cameras throughout the facility. One of the things that we'd like to do is My philosophy on learning, if you take a look at a three-dimensional object and you read the little card next to it, well, the learning doesn't stop there because you move on to a different display. So we're going to have little barcodes on the information cards, and if you're interested to learn more about this three-dimensional object, you'll be able to send a request to the Resource Center. And then they'll either, somebody up here will either do the research for you, or they'll block off a period of time so you can come up here and do your own research, because there'll be computers up here, there'll be monitors up here, there'll be printers up here. I know the prevailing wisdom is, well, we have a library and that's what libraries do. Well, the library can't do it all. So we're going to take care of our own, and then we can always use the library as an auxiliary form of information. There'll be books here, there'll be transcripts here, there'll be manuscripts, there'll be portfolios of what other people have done. This will be where you come to get that information that goes beyond the little write-up next to whatever it is you're looking at. Throughout the building, we do have exits, emergency exits, so we can live with that one big oversized door downstairs, and we have other ways to get out of the facility in case there is an emergency. Skylights will give us natural lighting in addition to the high-end electrical type of setup we're going to have. Currently there's subcommittees that are working, one of which is the ITIS subcommittee, and this place is going to be wireless. This place will be electrical outlets to code and then some. There'll be computer drops just about everywhere. There'll be flat screens. There'll be whatever is being watched here can be monitored. Whatever's being watched anywhere in the building can be monitored from the Resource Center. The conference room will be completely wired so that you need to do some computer work, you'll be able to do it on your break. You're not going to have to come out here and take time away from a paying customer. So I've been going on now for about 20-25 minutes. I think I kind of gave you a taste of where we are, what we're planning on doing. Our goals are lofty, and they come with a price tag. And the gentlemen who are going to join Jan soon will explain how you can financially be a part of this project. We have a $1.15 million capital campaign, and they know exactly where we are toward our final goal. Our final goal really is to open up, without a doubt, the best family attraction between St. Louis and Memphis. We can do it with your financial help. We can do it with the blood, sweat, and tears of the people who began demoing this building, and the construction people who are going to come in and set it up the way we would like. So that's about it from here, from me. Thank you, and don't go anywhere, because Jan, I'm turning it over to you now, so you can introduce your guests and go from there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rich. I would also like to welcome the visitors to the St. Genevieve Museum Learning Center Spotlight Series. With me tonight, we have two members from our management team. We have Robert Wolk, our CEO, and we have Matt Schweigert, our CFO. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jan.
Okay. Like Rich said, what we are planning here comes with a cost. And so what we'd like to talk about is how far we've come with our capital campaign. We've actually passed the halfway mark to our $1.15 million. Let's look at the many ways that a business or a person or a group of people can get involved now. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Robert, and we're going to talk about the letter of intent first.
Okay. we have made presentations, and when I say we, Rich and I have made several presentations to most of the groups in St. Genevieve County, asking them to become involved, and have had great reception from them. So we have a letter of intent. Once they have made a commitment, they can use this letter of intent. And what the letter of intent is going to tell us is what they want to do and how they want to help us, to what degree, and how their payments are going to be made. So the first thing that they would fill out is, what is your pledge? How much over the period of time that you're going to be given will you contribute towards the pledge? This allows Matt and the bank to work towards our loan and getting our final amount together for a grant at the end of this. The second thing is, are you going to enclose a payment with it at this time? And a lot of people, Jan, do not enclose a payment. They tell us, well, right now, we can't give you anything. Like we have a corporation right now that's told us, we're committed through the end of this year. Starting next year, you can anticipate payments from us. So they put in there is no payment enclosed, balance to be paid over how many years? And we have people that have committed to 5 years, some to 10 years. Anything works as long as it's a workable situation. Payment or pledge, it will begin on this date. So now this allows Matt and his system to track it and know when a payment is due. Send a reminder out. Matt, you might want to talk about that, your system, and how you're going to be tracking it?
Yeah, so through involvement with another capital campaign before, we developed a spreadsheet that tracks when those payments come in, and not so much on a grand scheme, but it breaks it down year by year. So we know what kind of cash flow we can expect to anticipate. Can we make our loan payments based on those pledges? And there again, it's a really nice system. And in addition to that, I share that information with Stephanie, our Director of Operations. And if she notices that someone is behind on a payment, she sends a friendly reminder that their payment is due in the near future. And
I found it amazing on the past campaign we were both involved in, the reception that you get from that and the participation. There's very few people do not make a payment, and some of those will tell you, I can't make the payment now due to a life situation that has changed.
Correct.
I'll catch those payments in the future. So it allows you to track forward also and tell people, or the bank and your system, to know when the money's coming in, right?
Yeah, it's vital for our financial planning and cash flow.
Okay. So then after we say, I'm going to begin my pledges on this time, thereafter, I'm going to make pledges on a monthly, quarterly, annually basis. And the amount of each payment will be X number of dollars. And you will get that either on a charge card, or you're going to send us a check, or charge it to my account at the bank. And you can give anything that we can use here to allow us to track those systems and know when our payments are coming in, Jan.
Okay, so Robert, you can actually set up an automatic withdrawal from your bank every month if you'd like to do it that way.
Sure.
Or you could set it up that they bill your credit card every month.
And that is true, and we have actually put a page in our packet that breaks down for people what a payment would be if they made an X number of, let's say they pledged $2,500, and they said, well, my initial gift is 20% of that, $500, then my payments over a 3-year period would be $56 a month for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Or I can spread that out to 5 years and my payments would be $33 a month for the next 5 years. So we broke down every pledge amount and how that would be made so it's palatable to people. They can see that, yes, that won't overwhelm us. We can do that. So after that, then we're going to ask them, you wish to remain anonymous? And some people do. They're going to give a contribution and they're going to say, no, I don't want anybody to know what we gave, but I'm very interested and want to support this project. Or, hey, I want to make a contribution in memory of a loved one, or in naming it to my business, or anything else that they desire. And over here we say, if you would like to get a naming right, and we have naming rights for certain amounts of money, people can purchase a naming right. So there's several of these naming rights that have been taken. There's several that are still available. So for a certain amount, they will have the naming rights to that geographic location in the building.
Can you give us a few examples of what those parts of the building look like and like the amounts that people are looking at there?
Well, Rich talked about in his presentation prior to this about the mining exhibit.
Sure.
So there will be a mining exhibit, and a company here in town has purchased the rights to that mining exhibit. So that exhibit will be set up, and it will be about all the mining in St. Genevieve County, not just one company. But that company has the naming right, so there'll be a plaque identifying that company and the fact that their contribution is the way this presentation in the museum is being funded.
Okay, great.
So the other thing then on the display will be, I wish to make it my contribution with the following naming opportunity. My or our gift is pledged in honor of or in memory of. They can do either one of those. Then we ask them to fill out this area. Please tell us how you want it to appear in the contribution list or in our giving wall. Hopefully we will design and have in the museum a giving wall identifying those individuals that have contributed and certain levels, not the amount of money, but certain levels,
Okay.
gold level, platinum level, whatever. And how do you want your name to appear on there? Or in whose name do you want that to be appear? And then put your name and address down so we know how to get in touch with people. We ask people to please put their email address on this sheet also, because a lot of the communication will be done via email. And our contributors will naturally be invited to special outings at the museum, grand openings, exhibit openings that are not open to the public. They'll be introduced to them first. And we will have those people in for a special sampling. That's the letter of intent. Jan, you can get that letter of intent from any one of the board members, or you can stop past the museum. We have packets down there and letters of intent that are available, and people can remain, the amount they're given is anonymous. Nobody sees that except the people that are collecting the funds. So we ask them to mail that letter of intent in a letter, seal it. It goes to the person that handles those. Nobody will ever know, including this board, what people are giving. It remains anonymous, and we think that's important. People should give what they want to. It's their private contribution, but we do appreciate every contribution.
Sure. That's right.
I don't think anything's too small, is it, Rich?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Rich will accept any amount of money, let us
Any.
clarify.
To make this
Anything,
project happen.
anything.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about that, and that's been a part of our capital campaign, is really going out and meeting with people and offering just the brochure, showing them what we're about, and then asking for some support. So that's been around town. That letter of intent has been presented to quite a few businesses and individuals already.
And organizations,
Right.
so,
And it's the same letter of intent. It's nothing new.
no.
It's the same one that we have started the campaign with. So there's other ways that businesses can also donate by giving of their time. You want to talk about that, Robert?
We have payment in kind. So some people will want to donate because they have a talent, electrical, heating and air conditioning, plumbing, whatever that may be, excavation, whatever those talents are. Some people may want to give in a like-kind donation, and they're saying, here's what my bid would be, but this is what we'll do it for, and we're going to contribute the balance of that in like-kind. So they are donating their labor and their expenses for doing that job to the museum as a contribution.
Can they also donate the materials?
Absolutely. There is no donation. Didn't you say none will be refused?
Actually, somebody called the museum today, and it's the, excuse me, let me get the title right, the materials manager at the, I guess I can mention the, can I mention the, no? Well, we
not until we
got,
talk.
somebody called today after reading an article that was published in the Daily Journal about our project. And he's a person that oversees supplies from a big supply chain and he wants to talk with a member of the board about his personal and his company's involvement. That happened today. So, we'll field any requests. We'll listen to any proposal.
So this might be a big question, but what kind of things are we needing right now that, might spark some businesses' interest? I mean, there's a whole list, we know. Do you want to talk about that? Like, we're going to put together a beautiful technology.
There will be a material list as the architect continues to work through the plans and lay it out. So when we have that final rendering of the architect's drawings and his list of materials, then we would have those materials available and be able to advise people what they could give in that area.
Great, sounds good.
One of the other areas, Jan, is, and we say methods of giving, your gift to our capital campaign is greatly appreciated. Many methods of giving listed below are some: a gift of cash, securities or land, a pledge of up to 3 to 5 years, payroll deductions or automatic bank drafts, company matching gift programs, and we have had a lot of our farmers have donated grain and donated the grain as a like-kind contribution to us. And they sell the grain, and then I'll let Matt talk more about that because that's an accounting issue. So.
Right, so like Robert alluded to is that a farmer could give grain to the museum. The way that technically should work per IRS rules is that the farmer hands over control of that grain to us, and then we call the grain elevator and say, sell. And when that happens, the grain becomes the property of the museum, the proceeds from the grain becomes property of the museum, and that farmer then does not pick up income on that grain. So essentially they're donating an item with low basis for the retail value of that. So, you can maybe get a bang for your buck, $2 for one of a contribution to the museum.
And you do not want them delivering the 6,000 bushels of grain to the museum itself, right?
Right. We don't want that on the sidewalk or anything like that.
Unless barley hops were mixed with water and it came in 12-ounce bottles. We could find room for that.
Always a genius on the board, is there not? But that is a good point, and we had several people in the previous campaign do that because we're a farming community, and a lot of the people said, that's a way for us to get involved without, or to enhance our gift is the way I guess I would put that. Would that be right, Matt?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, it's an opportunity for something that cost you, I'm not going to say little or nothing, but less than what the value of your contribution would really be.
Right.
Right. And, on that note, another idea is giving stock, appreciated stock. And the example that I was talking earlier about was, let's say that you own 1,000 shares of Walmart stock at $10 a share. Your basis in that is $10,000. Right now, Walmart stock is trading for about $80 a share. So that 1,000 shares has a value of $80,000. If you were to sell that today, you would have to pick up a $70,000 capital gain on your tax return, the 80 value minus the 10 basis. What IRS rules say that you can actually donate that stock, and the museum has its own brokerage account so that folks can fill out a form and say transfer my shares of FX stock to the museum. We could facilitate that very quickly. But what the IRS rules say is that if you would donate those 1,000 shares at $80 a share, your charitable contribution is $80,000. So there again, you've got something that cost you $10,000 that you are now contributing for $80,000, and you never have to pay tax on it. And there's a number of different ways to go about that. If someone didn't want to give their entire portfolio of Walmart stock, let's say that they wanted to sell half of it and give half of it to the museum. Well, in that case, the amount that they sell, they get $40,000 in proceeds with $5,000 basis. They've got a $35,000 gain on their tax return. If they donate the other half of the stock, now they've got a $40,000 deduction. So they've just brought in $40,000 of cash, and it's actually a net negative $5,000 of income on their tax return. So there's some really neat planning ideas there if someone holds stock like that. There again, they may not be very liquid at the moment, but if they'd like to help, there are other options out there.
You've got a lot of solutions. I think you're the man to talk to when it comes to figuring that out and to keep yourself in a tax bracket where you want to be
Absolutely.
and not to actually throw you into a situation that could really harm you
Right.
financially. So I think that's when you ask the experts to kind of guide you through those decisions, wouldn't you say?
And absolutely, you know, all of this comes with a caveat, and that is talk to your tax professional before you pull the trigger on something like that. You know, I can sit here and say, that's a great idea. It may not be a great idea for you personally. It may be a fantastic idea for you personally, but it would be up to your tax advisor to let you know whether that's right for you.
So in that, would you like to hit on the RMDs too then? I think that's a big piece of what we're talking about here, is it not?
It is, yeah. So if folks that aren't familiar, the RMD is a required minimum distribution. And there again, that's a tax law that says that if you're holding an IRA and at the time that you turn 70 and a half, you're required to take money out of that IRA whether you want to or not. You can no longer let that money sit there. The IRS says it has to come out. It goes into a little calculation based on your age and the amount of money that you have sitting in the IRA. But I was looking today, and I think if you had, let's say, $100,000 sitting in an IRA, and you're 70 years old, your required distribution in that year that you turn 70 and a half is around $4,500. Now, you know, maybe you're already living comfortably without that $4,500. The idea there is to talk to your investment representative, and instead of taking that distribution as a check to yourself, have that check go directly to the organization of your choice, hopefully the museum, for folks that are watching. When you do that, that $4,500 is not included in your income as the holder of the IRA. Poof, it's gone. You know, one way to facilitate that would be to take the $4,500 and then give it to the museum. Well, that $4,500 may trigger other things in your tax situation that is not beneficial to you. For folks that are collecting Social Security, in some cases, by taking that RMD, it increases the amount of your Social Security that is taxable. So in some cases, I've seen this where someone gets that $4,500 distribution, their taxable income actually increases $8,000 to $9,000. That's not a good situation. You know, we've advised folks before to just, instead of taking that RMD, find an organization that you'd like to donate that to, goes directly in there. You never pay tax on it, your heirs never pay tax on it, and the 501c3 nonprofit never pays tax on it. So again, you know, it's a way of taking a low basis investment, turning it into something very positive and not paying tax on it.
Matt, with that said, maybe we should have started with it, Jan, and I apologize. You want to advise about the 501c3? Forgot to mention that when we started.
Right, so the Friends of the St. Genevieve Museum is a 501c3 organization, which means that we're an organization that is permitted into taking in charitable contributions. So every dollar that you give to us, whether it be through an RMD, stock, in-kind, cash, credit card, you will get a year-end tax letter saying, thank you for your donation, here's the dollar amount. Feel free to claim this as a deduction on your tax return. Okay.
So that allows people to really give quite a donation to keep their tax or their revenue for the year down.
Absolutely.
And so that's a nice way to, at the end of the year when you're looking at that, you can offer quite a donation to get yourself into a situation where it's more helpful to you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, I'd like to revisit that, that $4,500, that the fictitious,
The required.
the required, yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm not a numbers guy, never was, probably never will be. In this situation, this person A had $100,000, of which 4,500 came out. Year one, that person donates the $4,500 to the museum.
Mhm.
Well, now he's 71 and a half, or person A is 71 and a half now. Is there another mandatory
There is.
4,500, or is the deduction 95 and change because 45 came out?
Right, so, yeah, let's say if in year one it's $4,500, in year two it's probably 4,400 or 4,300 because now you're.
It's a little less.
lesser pool.
But it's something that has to happen every single year.
Every single year. And I can tell you that we do have a donor right now that committed a certain dollar amount. And they are meeting their commitment through required minimum distributions. So they said, here, I'm going to donate X amount per year. At the end of this past year, I got a check directly from their investment company that helped offset or meet their commitment for these.
So Matt, what you're saying though, that check has got to be cut from the institution that is paying out the RMD to the charitable organization. It cannot come through your checking account.
It can't be made directly to the owner of the IRA.
So that's why you advise people, make sure you talk to your tax advisor before you do anything.
Correct. And if they'd like to call me, I'm available. We can get contact information on our website. I've got kind of a little checklist of what needs to happen in order to make that transaction work and complete and legal.
And they can also discuss stock dispersions, because I know you've done some of those for the museum also, have
Correct.
you not?
Yes, yep. They can, yeah, anytime anybody wants to call me and find out how to make that transaction work, I'll be more than happy to help them and advise them anyway. I
And
can.
you've got the vehicle set up to make that happen?
Correct, yeah, the museum has its own brokerage account at the time.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We still have quite a few minutes. We have about 13 minutes to continue to explain that, Matt, if
Okay.
you'd like to. I know that there's a lot of things that are hitting retired folks when they're looking at taking on Social Security checks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you talked earlier when we were chatting that they may want to delay accepting Social Security because it might help them with an income later on, and then look at different ways to use other funds coming in. I mean, those are things that a lot of people don't even understand.
Right.
But that's why, I mean, I really think it's good to talk to someone, but if you want to explain a few things like that, or if you want to continue to talk about ways that are other avenues to bring money into the museum?
There again, I don't know, I guess the point being that there are, if you can dream it up, there's probably a chance that we can accept it. So, there again, if you've got investments sitting around, and there again, if you're not very liquid, there are other avenues that we can work with you to see if we can take a donation from you.
Matt, would ground work the same way?
I was
If
just gonna
somebody
say
had a
land.
parcel? or
Yeah,
a
land.
property
Do we
or
become
something?
the landowners, or how does land work?
Yeah, so there are, and this gets a little bit more involved, but there are things such as charitable remainder trusts that folks can set up. In that case, I don't know if that's something that we could handle. We might have to get somebody else involved. But let's say that, you know, I know the story. There was we'll call her a little old lady. You know, she was getting up in age, and mom and dad had left the farm to her years before. Well, she was not in the health to farm that land anymore, and it was sitting there vacant. Well, that was supposed to be what was supposed to keep her liquid through her life, and there again, she wasn't able to work it, wasn't able to manage it. So what she did is that she put this into a charitable remainder trust, and the land was sold. And that put a pile of money into the trust. Now that trust then funded her through her lifetime. She was able to take, I think it's 4% per year off of that trust. And that was her income, her living money while she was still alive. When she passed then, whatever that trust was set up to do, let's say it was set up to give money to the museum, then the museum would then take ownership of that cash that was remaining in that trust. So there again, there's a number of estate planning issues to think about as well, if you're so inclined to be charitable with your estate.
So about any type of contribution could be made and tailored to the funds to come to the museum if they so desire to do that.
Yeah. And there again, with putting that money in, depending on how it's structured, that person would also be entitled to a charitable donation for that land or that farm or that home or whatever the case may be.
Mhm. And Jan, if anybody has questions regarding this, or needs a letter of intent or would like more information, they can stop past the museum
Okay.
and talk to our operations director, Stephanie. Stephanie has this information at the museum. She has modified versions of it for people that don't want to read all of this stuff. She has a modified version with a letter of intent. They can pick it up there, and she will direct them to, and she will advise them. Please talk to your consultant. If it's your firm, that's great. If it's not, please talk to somebody before you do this. so that you tailor it correctly for your needs. Is that correctly stated?
Absolutely, yeah. There again, don't make any decisions in a vacuum. Make sure that you've got your entire income and estate plans in your best interest before you pull the trigger on something like this.
I think the entire brochure is online.
Oh, that's correct. You're
Yeah.
right.
I think if anybody goes to all lowercase letters sgmlc.org, the entire brochure can be seen, including, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah, it does.
all of the
It
papers
has all
in the
the
back.
papers in the back,
Yeah.
you're right.
You know, on that note, I mean, there's a wealth of information that's being put on that website at this point, am I correct? I mean,
Oh,
with the
yeah,
blog and
yeah.
these videos and, you know, links to a number of things. And as time goes, and we progress with this, it'll be your one-stop shop to
Mm-hmm.
find out whatever you want to know about what we're doing.
Isn't there also a place where you can just submit a donation directly through that website?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty, it's pretty sophisticated, and it'll only get even bigger and better as we get closer to the ribbon cutting, when that happens. Talking about ownership, I think it should be mentioned that Stephanie, our operations director, and Susie, our intern, have been going through all of the items that we have cataloged, and they're separating those items that are in our possession that have been loaned to us, and those items in our possession that have been donated to us. And we found out through the state that it behooves us as an organization to make sure that when we move, we haul only that stuff that has been given to us and the proper paperwork has been filled out. So we're in the process of calling people that have loaned, and we're going through it. He's no longer with us, or she's no longer with us, but you want to talk, and we're getting people saying, oh, I didn't realize that, but what do you want me to do? And our response is, well, you've got to sign your name on one of two forms. Either you want the item back, or we get to keep it. And when we get to keep it, it's not going to be tossed in a closet. It'll be put on display. It'll be taken off display. It'll be put on a new display. It'll go in our roving display when we visit nursing homes and hospitals, you know, with items. So that's another ownership thing that we're currently doing now. We're making sure that if we can't find, going back 2 or 3 generations, if there's just nobody available that's indicating the item was loaned to us, then I guess we can play that possession as 9/10 of the law card.
You know, I've been following along with the girls on social media, and they've been uncovering some really neat things down there.
Yeah.
What was it this week? There was a letter from a king?
King, Roman numerals, there again, numbers. It's King something, you know, with a V and an I or whatever. But it was given, the letter was sent from this English king to the either grandfather or great-grandfather of a fella who was visiting with his wife and knew that there was some St. Genevieve ties. And sure enough, not only did we have the letter, but it was on display. So, I mean, that made his day. And that 2 weeks ago, we have a brass spyglass that's in with our nautical items, and somebody came in and he said, my dad donated that.
That's interesting.
And I mean, we're finding more and more stuff, and people are coming out of the woodwork, which means they're watching the YouTubes, they're watching they're in tune with the Facebooks, they're reading articles, and you know, we've had at the current museum, we've had a definite increase in walk-in traffic and coming in specifically asking to see an item, which I think is pretty cool, because we went from a building that I moved here 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I didn't know the building existed then, to now it's, which way's the museum? Well, right over there, yeah.
So Rich, if a person has something in their possession that they want to donate to the museum, is there a protocol in place? I'm sure that there is.
Yeah,
How would
they-
you go
they-
about just
They come
contacting
down.
Stephanie?
Well, they come down with the item, and again, if, you know, our job, our hook phrase is preserving the past for future generations. So we'll, if you don't want your item, we'll find a home for it. So what they'll do is they'll come into the current museum, and this will happen in the new facility as well. Stephanie will say, I've got two 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper here. This is for a loan. If we don't like to do loans, this is for the donation. So you give us the item, I give you this, you sign, we'll make a copy, and then they'll go right to whether we have a middle school or a high school student doing community service hours toward National Honor Society, or if it's a Boy Scout or Cub Scout working toward a badge. If there's somebody physically in the building, we'll give them that paperwork and we'll put them on a laptop, and they'll actually catalog it. And then it's up to us to display it.
And Jan, that's with a caveat, though, that we have the ability to accept that item and store it someplace where it's usable. There are some items, like I had a large item that a gentleman come to me today and said he wanted to donate. I have no place to store that item, and it would be sometime in the future before we can go into our next annex phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, before I'll have room to store that item. So with that said, I have no place to go with it, and I ask him, thank you for offering it, but I have no place that I can take that item right now. But also with that said, Matt, what happens if they contribute something and it has a value associated with it? What would happen there?
Well, I think the first step, if they were interested in getting a charitable contribution for that amount, it would have to have some sort of appraisal done on it. And I guess depending on the value would probably dictate how in-depth that appraisal would need to be. But certainly, you know, again, if it's an item that's worth some money, we would probably, as a museum, work with that person to get the appraisal done and figure out what that contribution would be. And there again, we provide them with a letter saying your contribution is worth X amount.
And as a 501c3, they could then file that with their tax return and get a deduction for that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, the caveat is simply that we've got to have the ability to house that item and not just take an item for the heck of it, okay?
That sounds great. Lots of ways that you can support the St. Genevieve Museum Learning Center. Okay, I appreciate you guys sharing all that information. If people have additional questions, maybe we haven't talked about something that they've considered, would you prefer that they call Matt, or would they call you, Robert?
They would call neither of us. They would actually channel that through the museum.
Okay.
And then the museum will forward it to whichever person is handling that piece of it.
Good
So,
answer.
and I guess the one today come through the museum for the donation on materials. That come through the museum,
Yeah,
and then it was
that went right
forwarded to me.
Yeah.
So we would prefer that they always contact the museum, and they will direct them in the right direction from there.
So if they call the museum, we have regular office hours, and if they call outside of those office hours, there will be an answering service that will take that message.
There is an answering service, plus they have the ability to send an email or a text directly to the museum, do Facebook. What else is available, Matt?
I think if you go to the website, the sgmlc.org, there's a number of ways that you
Yep.
can
Contact us
Mhm.
Okay.
through the website.
I know there's a lot of older people that still don't like that social media. And so I want to make sure that our older
Jan, where are you
population.
looking over here? What you're saying?
I'm talking about myself sometimes here. I don't always get on all the social media. I get on some of it, but I know that there's a lot of folks older than myself that just don't want to go that
I
route.
agree.
So they would rather pick up a phone call or make a phone call or talk to someone face to face. And of course, you know, if you catch them off hours, you can leave a message, ask for them to call you back, and that will be done. We're a
There's
very
somebody-
personable
Yeah.
group. There are people that will talk to you individually, one-on-one. I don't want anyone to be afraid or have to feel like they have to go through the social media
No,
route.
7 days a week, from 10 to 4, there's somebody at the desk that will answer the phone. And before that and after that, they can leave a message.
Sounds good. So we're right at 8 o'clock, gentlemen. I think we should call it.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you for joining us tonight, and we will see you next month on the
Next month.
Spotlight Series. Good evening.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.